Holly Ridge smelled of damp pine and cinnamon on the air. Snow left a fresh shimmer over the old sleigh the town council had placed at the foot of the giant fir tree. Victoria Martin, deputy mayor, reviewed the laminated program for the third time and aligned the microphones with Virgo-level precision. At exactly 6 p.m., lights, classic carols, and hot chocolate. No surprises, she told herself, knowing full well her private life had been nothing but surprises ever since her ex-husband and ex-best friend had decided to love each other behind her back. The square buzzed with low-voiced rumors that the new craftsman from the outskirts was coming to donate a copper bell for the fir tree tower. That he was a total dreamboat, a word that both irritated and ignited Victoria at the same time. She smiled diplomatically and let the murmurs pass like wind through branches. At 5:58, she tested the lighting lever. The string of lights answered with a spark and died. Second attempt. Silence. Third, the smell of burned wiring. The technician looked at her guilty. "We lost the line, Vic." A gingerbread cookie broke in a child's hand. The crowd's murmur swelled. Victoria inhaled deeply. "Plan B," she said. "Where's the generator?" "Here," answered a calm voice. Sebastián Abbot emerged through the crowd carrying a portable generator and a toolbox. Tall, winter-built shoulders, attentive eyes. He moved with the practical calm of a Capricorn who has dismantled and rebuilt the world 100 times. On the old sleigh, a Siamese cat observed with the gaze of a 19th-century judge. "Lord Byron," Sebastian introduced with a half-smile. "He decided to come today." The cat jumped onto the sleigh, got comfortable, and fixed its eyes on Victoria as if it had already read her. "I'm Victoria," she said. "Thanks for stepping in. Sebastian, the blacksmith," he added simply. "I make swords and, when needed, modest electrical miracles." She pointed to the base of the tree. Sebastian connected the generator without theatrics. The faint crackle of lights signaled they were close. "The real problem is up top," he said, looking at the star. "The bracket bent. If it loosens, it won't hold the weight of the cable. The star can't fall," Victoria whispered, feeling the whole town breathing down her neck. "It won't fall," he assured. They climbed the folding ladder. Victoria held the garland. Sebastian, gloved, straightened the metal bracket with precise taps. Up close, the scent of the needles carried a sweet memory. Victoria pushed it away. "I'm going to pass the garland behind your forearm," he warned. "Go ahead," she replied. Their hands worked as if they'd known each other before, firm, methodical. His fingers brushed the back of her hand as he tightened the knot. A small, unmistakable warmth traveled through the gloves. "Breathe with me," he murmured. She followed the rhythm 1, 2, and the garland yielded exactly where it should. The world shrank to hands fixing lights against the clock, the vibration of straightened metal, and the scent of freshly wounded pine. "Ready?" Someone yelled from below. "Ready," Victoria answered, and pulled the lever. The fir tree exploded in light. The copper bell Sebastian had brought temporarily hung from the first branch gave a rich, rounded chime. The square burst into applause and camera clicks. Lord Byron stretched, regal, master of the scene. From the crowd came a comment Victoria pretended not to hear. "Look what a pair they make." Another whispered, "Isn't he too young for her?" She descended the ladder with the polished smile of her office and a brand-new tremor in her hands. "Thank you," she said once on the ground. "You saved the night. That's what people who hammer iron are for," Sebastian replied. "And if you want, tomorrow I can forge a proper star bracket. Something that'll last many Christmases." The Siamese cat leapt from the sleigh onto Sebastian's shoulder and, without asking permission, stretched out a paw toward Victoria, touching her coat like someone bestowing a title. She laughed for the first time in weeks. "Seems his lordship approves of me. He's picky," Sebastian said, with a dry humor that surprised her. Victoria saw her reflection in the copper. No more surprises, she had promised herself. And yet, she felt that promise cracking like a gingerbread cookie in a child's pocket. That night, Holly Ridge didn't just light a tree. Victoria had no idea her heart was also about to switch on. The workshop breathed with low, steady warmth, a quiet heartbeat in the anvil, the scent of leather and damp pine clinging to clothes. Outside, snow melted in heavy drops along the gutters. Victoria pushed the door open with the signed permit tucked inside a folder. She had announced she would just drop it off and leave, but her boots echoed farther than she intended. "I thought you'd come tomorrow," said Sebastian, stepping out from the forge area with rolled-up sleeves and an enamel mug. He didn't look tired, he looked focused. "I preferred to bring it now," she replied, good Virgo with schedules shielding herself with order. "That way I don't interrupt open forging hours." He set the mug on a table. Lord Byron slept in the glass-walled office, curled into an aristocratic ball. The workshop was immaculate, tools hung by size, gloves aligned, the marking table covered with a clean cloth. A hook with a half-forged star glinted on the edge. "I moved here 6 months ago," Sebastian commented, as if completing a pending fact. "Maybe that's why we hadn't run into each other. I still get lost along the river bend. Holly Ridge adopts you quickly if you make a bell ring," she smiled, referring to the chime from the night before. "And if you don't drop it on someone," he joked dryly. Comfortable silence. The forge hummed with a deep purr. She extended the folder. "Permit, measurements, safety list. And thank you for donating your hours. Thank you for organizing it." He read the papers carefully without rushing. "Do you mind if we test the reinforcement for the bracket now?" "Then tomorrow we only have to polish," Victoria thought. "You shouldn't stay." But she said, 5 minutes. He nodded. He handed her a leather apron and gloves. He didn't set them on the table, he stepped close to adjust them. "May I?" he asked, and waited. "Yes," she answered, trying and failing not to look at his mouth. The apron strap brushed her wrist. Sebastian secured it with precision and a firm knot. The contact was minimal, and yet Victoria's body registered it as if a spark had run from her forearm to her neck. He withdrew his fingers with a gentleness that didn't ask for credit. "I want you to mark first," he explained. 3 guiding taps, then we temper. Sound good? Tell me where to hold." He placed the piece on the anvil. The forge's light painted their skin in copper. "Breathe with me," he murmured. "No theatrics. 1, 2. The hammers rang in counterpoint. She marking, he adjusting the angle with barely their pressure over her gloved hand. A slow warmth spread, pulsed, shared through the air. Victoria followed the rhythm and, for the first time in months, lost her focus, not because of the work, but because of the way he looked at her, attentive, direct, as if beauty could be measured in precision and strength, not in clothing sizes. Color rose to her cheeks with embarrassing clarity. "Concentrate," she ordered herself. 1 strike slipped sideways. "Sorry," she whispered. "It's perfect." Sebastian held her wrist for a second, steady. "It's your mark." And he smiled, not at the piece, but at her. It wasn't a, "how cute" smile. It was an "ICU" smile. Victoria defended herself with technique. The angle was almost off. She brushed a lock off her cheek with her gloved knuckles. "Almost," he conceded. "And you corrected it. The star reinforcement was finished." A dip into the quench was enough for the metal to sing softly. Sebastian shut off the forge, and the workshop's intensity dropped a notch. She breathed. He offered her the enamel mug. "Chocolate with mint. Drinking in the workspace isn't professional, but tonight I'm making an exception." "Much appreciated," she said, the steam hitting her face with clean sweetness. "I like working when the town is asleep." He leaned a hip on the table, keeping respectful distance. "There's less noise outside." "And fewer eyes," Victoria thought. She looked at her own disheveled reflection in a polished steel sheet. She knew the square had seen her laughing the night before, and that was enough to ignite gossip. She was 42, a curvy beauty who had learned to dress with tailored cuts and to defend herself with humor. She had decorated 1,000 Christmas trees, balanced 1,000 budgets, raised a daughter who would return from her father's house on Christmas Day. And yet, standing in front of this 31-year-old man, athletic, quiet, the old certainty returned. "Someone this gorgeous wouldn't look twice at a woman like me?" "What are you thinking?" he asked softly. No impatience, just interest. "Schedules," she lied professionally. "Tomorrow we open at 10. I need volunteers with gloves for the jingle bells, and I'll be there at 9, he said. "I'll bring extra hooks in case we need them." He paused. "Victoria." The way he said her name was something else. Warm metal being shaped without losing form. She lifted her gaze. She found him looking at her as if he had already chosen her, not for some golden fairy tale, but for the kind of teamwork that lasts. That way of looking made her stomach tremble. She dropped her gaze to the table's edge and blamed herself for the weakness. "Thank you for tonight," she summed up, Virgo style, closing the folder. "I should go. I'll walk you to the door." He straightened. He didn't try to prolong anything. He didn't need to. They passed the office. Lord Byron opened one blue eye and assessed them with noble indifference. Sebastian tapped lightly on the glass with his knuckle a code between friends. The cat blinked, approved. "If you hear stories," he said as he helped her with her coat, "let them crash against the gate. Only the noise Steele accepts gets in here. Good motto for a workshop." She allowed him to adjust her scarf, his knuckles grazing her skin. "Also works for living," he added calmly. She picked up the reinforced hook. "I can't accept gifts." "It's not a gift? It's temporary municipal property," he replied with such seriousness it made her laugh. "You're just safeguarding it until tomorrow." Victoria stared at her hands for a moment. For the first time since her personal disaster, she felt her body belonged to her when she set the rhythm. "Good night, Sebastian." "Good night, Victoria." She opened the door. Fine snow was falling. The taste of mint lingered on her tongue, and she felt the fierce certainty that something had changed scale-like when metal shifts from soft to true. She closed the door behind her carefully. She didn't know that, on the other side, he would remain still for a while, breathing deeply, grateful to have time and a plan to do things right. But she would soon find out. The Overlook sat 2 bends above town, a wooden platform facing the giant fir as if it were a mountain lighthouse. The air smelled of damp pine, and every breath came out white. Victoria climbed up with a flashlight and a thermos of something warm. He was already by the mast supporting the star's cable. Fine snow crowned them in a silent halo. "I came to check the tension," Sebastian said. "With the wind, the carabiners can loosen. And I came to bring you this," she replied, lifting the thermos. "It's still hot." He received it with quiet gratitude. They drank a sip of cinnamon cocoa. Below, Holly Ridge looked like a nativity scene. "The other night I thought the tree was going to topple on us," Victoria joked, searching for solid ground. "Thanks for holding." "I want to hold things well," Sebastian answered plainly. "What's entrusted to me, I take care of." A pause. "Including you, if you let me." The wind shook a test bell into a small chime. Victoria looked out over the valley to avoid looking at him. Her heart was half a step ahead. "What I feel,"
he said, "started the night of the lighting ceremony. I'm not asking for urgency or secrecy."
"I can go slow and be useful even if you decide this isn't right for you." "I just didn't want to keep quiet anymore. My life has been very public and very broken," she admitted. "I'm scared of repeating mistakes. And there's an age gap people in town won't forgive easily. I can handle that." He adjusted the upper carabiner. The metal rang softly. "The only thing I won't do is push you," she nodded, a thin thread of nervous laughter escaping. "Help me with the cable," she said. "I wanted to feel it secure." They stood facing each other, the star above like a witness. Their breaths rose in soft clouds. Their hands met at the carabiner, the gloves slid lightly. He said, "I'm going to reach behind your hand to tighten. Is that okay?" "It's okay." They pulled together. The rope eased by the exact millimeter. Up close, Victoria sensed his warmth through the wool, and a faint scent of warm metal and mint from the cocoa. Sebastian released the tension slowly, without letting go of the brush of their knuckles. "You've got snow here," he murmured. He brushed 2 melted flakes from her cheek with the back of his fingers, leaving a faint blush. She didn't pull away. Her chest rose and fell in measured rhythm. "Victoria," he said then, testing her name as if checking balance. "May I?" The Virgo in her precise, calculating answered clearly, "Yes." The first kiss came without hurry and without sound. The angle of his hand at her nape, the exact pressure of his lips, the rhythm that asked nothing yet said everything. Sebastian kissed the way he worked steel. Attentive, patient, measuring temperature and listening. He pulled back a centimeter to breathe with her, then came in for a second kiss warmer, brief, flawless. Victoria felt, for the first time in a long while, that someone had read her body with both respect and skill. He lowered his hand only to her shoulder no further. "Thank you," he whispered with an honesty that warmed the air. "If you want me to stop, don't stop yet," she interrupted softly. A small bell chimed, as if the wind were ratifying the agreement. Then they both laughed quietly like people returning from the edge of a frozen lake with their footing intact. "Let's take the service stairs down," he suggested. "Fewer eyes. Good idea," she said, a smile still on her lips. "Tomorrow we'll be reasonable people." "We're reasonable today, too," Sebastian replied. "Just happy." They picked up the thermos and the tools. As they crossed the parking area, a short meow sounded from the car. Lord Byron poked his head out, a satisfied aristocrat. Victoria gave him a miniature salute. The cat blinked as if signing the document. The overlook faded behind them, the star steady and a single note still hanging in the air. Holly Ridge slept. Inside Victoria's chest, something clicked like a carabiner locking shut. But the best was yet to come. Soft snow formed a cushion on Victoria's porch. She unlocked the door and let Sebastian step inside. The warmth of the house smelled of lavender and old cookies. In the entryway, on a console table, the hook with the star rested inside a cloth bag like a heart on pause. "I asked you here because I don't want half sentences in the town square," she said, hanging her coat on the rack. "People are calling the radio with gossip. And today someone stuck a note on the community notice board." "I figured," he replied calmly. "If we don't even know what we are yet, explaining anything would be lying twice." She nodded, prepared hot chocolate. He remained standing, careful at the edge of her rug like someone entering a temple. "I don't want my daughter landing in the middle of the noise she arrives on Christmas Day," she added. "But I also don't want to be scared of something good." "Then let's sort it out," he proposed. "Nothing public. Work and logistics out in the open. Whatever this is, if there is of this slow and clear. And if you decide no, I'll still be useful." Victoria held his gaze. He looked young, and yet carried a seriousness she'd never found in men her age. "There's a part of this we're not going to solve with lists," she said. "And people will keep talking until we know what we're talking about." She breathed in. "We could spend the night together. To decide with a clear head. Here, no secrets." He set the mug down on the counter. He didn't rush toward her. He took 2 steps that asked permission. "Is that what you want?" he asked. "Yes," she answered, honest. "If we choose it together." The warm light of the living room drew their intention in soft lines. They kissed with the rhythm they already knew, attentive and measured. Fabrics brushed, their hands found edges and breaths. When the intensity asked for a step further, Sebastian hesitated. His hand froze halfway, his shoulders tightened. The air changed temperature. "Sorry," he said, pulling back a little, a blush rising all the way to his ears. I can't, not now." She rested her forehead against his. "We're okay," she whispered. "Tell me," he swallowed. Looked down at his own hands as if they were tools that suddenly wouldn't obey. "Last year I was with someone who..." He searched for the words. "She made me feel small. I never..." He drew a breath. "I've never been able to get there. And I haven't... with anyone." The silence was clean without judgment. Victoria rearranged the whole world with a single sentence. "Thank you for trusting me with that." He nodded, his vulnerability clumsy and beautiful. "I want to be with you," he added. "I want to learn without hurting you." "But if I failed now..." "You didn't fail," she interrupted with a sure smile. "Affection isn't an exam. There are other ways to show desire and to be close. Will you stay for a bath? Hot and long, no goals. Just us, the water, and quiet." "Yes," he said, with a relief that almost sounded like gratitude. Cold metal from the tap gave way to hot water. Steam on the mirror, lavender in the air, and a hint of mint. Victoria placed 2 thick towels nearby, and before stepping in she asked softly, "Is it okay if I take your hand?" "It's okay," he answered. Under the water, their hands found each other unhurriedly. Their breathing sensed, their foreheads touched, and their fingers kneaded tense shoulders while the sound of the water hid everything else. She washed his hair slowly. He, with trembling but steady hands, rinsed her neck. No rush, no pressure. Just the learning of being together. When they stepped out, wrapped in towels, Calm settled on them like a blanket. "This is the kind of night I never had before," he said. "Honest." He laughed quietly, almost in disbelief. "I didn't think someone like you would like someone like me," Victoria confessed, embarrassed, but not afraid. Curvy, 42 with scars that still sting. "I like you," Sebastian said simply. "I like how you order the world, how you listen, how you set the pace. Your curves drive me crazy. I like you." "I can wait," she said. "I waited 6 years for someone to tell me the truth. Now I have it. And it's worth gold." He lowered his head for a moment, overwhelmed. "I want to learn with you. At your pace." "At our pace," she corrected gently. "Let's sleep. Tomorrow we'll be reasonable people," she smiled. And today too. At the exit, Sebastian dressed in silence lighter somehow, renewed. Victoria walked him to the porch. Snow kept falling as if no one were watching. "Good night, Victoria. Good night, Sebastian." They hugged long, warm. He leaned in and brushed his lips against her forehead, the exact pressure of a promise at rest. When she closed the door behind him, she let herself laugh alone, a clean, surprised laugh. She remembered nights when she had felt guilty and unwanted. That sensation dissolved like breath on glass. For Sebastian, she could wait. For them, she would have patience. And for the first time in years, she liked the woman she was when she turned off the light. Doubts were clearing, and the balance leaned toward a yes. Christmas Eve lit up Holly Ridge with the scent of cinnamon and pine. The wooden stage creaked under the boots. The lined lanterns cast warm light over the fresh snow. Victoria Martin reviewed the program one last time. The words she had decided to say weighed less than they had days before. She had put them in order, the way a true Virgo tidies a house before opening the door. She took the microphone. "Neighbors, thank you for turning this square into a shared living room every year. We're about to open the first waltz. And today, if you'll allow me, I want to dance it with the man who reinforced our star, and without knowing it, also reinforced my courage." She searched the crowd. "Sebastián Abbot, will you join me?" A soft murmur rippled through the crowd. Sebastian walked up without hurry, steady, in a simple dark suit, his hands clean from the workshop. He stopped at a respectful distance. Victoria offered her wrist like someone proposing a clear pact. He dipped his head slightly. The band began the first gentle notes. Their white breaths mingled as they met in the center. "Thank you for inviting me," he whispered, almost only for her. "Thank you for accepting," she replied. The opening turned fit together like warm metal finding its mold, his hand on her shoulder, her hand on his arm. It was a simple dance, and yet everything settled. The star above them, the tree, the people, the murmur. The age difference didn't disappear. It simply became context, not obstacle. She felt her own body steady and cherished. Other couples began to fill the floor. That was when Sebastian stepped back, asked for a pause with a look, and took a small black box from his pocket. He opened it with care. Inside lay a pavinated iron cuff bracelet with a cutout star at the center. "So you remember that what is strong can also be beautiful," he said softly, but with certainty. "And that nothing important needs to be rushed." He fastened it around her wrist with a precision that felt like a caress. The metal was tempered warm, not cold. Then he showed a matching simple band on his own wrist, the same unadorned star. The crowd reacted with a held-in "oh," then applause that fell like snowflakes. "And since we're being clear," Victoria added, and the microphone carried her steady voice, "I want to introduce not only the master blacksmith behind our lanterns and supports, I want to introduce my partner." She let the word breathe. "I know there will be opinions. And I also know that my private life doesn't change my service to this town. Today, the only thing we add is truth." She held Sebastian's hand openly. No longer speech was needed. He looked at her the same way he had when they marked hammer blows at the anvil. Attentive, quiet, respect first. The waltz resumed. On the second turn, Lord Byron appeared at the edge of the stage, crossing it with the gait of a tired prince. He stopped by the lectern, looked at the crowd as if taking attendance, and meowed once. The square burst into laughter. Invisible tension folded in on itself and vanished. "You owe me a dance with no audience," he murmured. "You'll owe it indeed," she replied, feeling his pulse through the cuff on her wrist. A few neighbors raised their phones. Others discreetly lowered them. The town clerk, practical as ever, clapped in perfect time, setting a pattern of acceptance. Near the lantern row, an elderly woman said, "That's how you do it, words and work." Victoria breathed deeply and let that echo settle inside. When the music softened, Sebastian searched for her gaze. He didn't grandstand. He merely asked permission with the smallest gesture. She nodded. They leaned in and shared a brief, warm kiss unhurried, just enough to say, "We're here without apology." Someone shouted, "Merry Christmas!" And the shout multiplied. "Tomorrow my daughter arrives," Victoria said quietly against his shoulder. "Tonight I wanted her to find us in truth." "I'll be here," he answered. "With respect, with patience, with chocolate recipes if needed." She laughed. The band switched to a lively polka. They stepped aside, still holding hands. Sebastian looked up at the star atop the tree, which pulsed twice an electrical detail he had programmed. A spontaneous cheer rose like good wind. "Holly Ridge," Victoria said into the mic. "Thank you for dancing with us. May this star remind us that what's strong can also be tender." The crowd responded with applause. Lord Byron curled up at the base of the lectern like a seal of approval. The bracelet gleamed for a second between lanterns. And the night finally settled on the side of those who do not hide their joy, unaware that more surprises were still waiting. The house smelled of lavender again when they closed the door after the dance. The porch lanterns cast soft shadows along the hallway. Victoria Martin set down her scarf, touched the star bracelet, and listened to how her own pulse welcomed her back. "Are you staying?" she asked, with no disguise. "If you want me to stay," replied Sebastián Abbot, "I want that." They prepared 2 mugs of mint tea and turned off every light except one. In the bedroom, the wool blanket spread a gentle silence. They decided that tonight would be cuddles, kisses, and caresses until they fell asleep. No room for rush. They settled on their sides, facing each other. His breathing fell into rhythm with hers. Sebastian kissed her forehead, the line of her temple, and the corner of her smile. Victoria responded with a new calm, savoring the map that was being read on her without expecting any destination. "Thank you for the waltz," she whispered. "Thank you for saying partner," he answered, still surprised. She smiled in the dimness. The weight of the previous month seemed to sort itself into a drawer that finally closed. Sleep came slowly. Victoria was about to drift off with Sebastian's hand held in hers when a stroke through her hair pulled her halfway back. In the early hours, the house sounded like a distant clock and fog on the glass. A soft kiss on her forehead, another on her cheek, another at the corner of her mouth. "Is it okay if I keep going?" he asked, voice low. "It's okay," she said. Slow. The kiss deepened a little and remained soft. His palm traveled patiently from her shoulder down to her forearm and then settled at her waist, asking permission with a pulse that didn't rush. His hand descended a little further over the fabric, resting at her center with a respect that warmed Victoria's eyes. She placed her hand over his, sealing a silent agreement. "Do you want to try?" Victoria whispered. "Slow," he suggested, like someone offering a coat in winter. "Slow," she confirmed, feeling the word open her chest. Everything unfolded with tenderness, the exact weight of his hand, the cadence of shared breathing, pressure that asked and response that guided, fabrics adjusting without display, fingers learning, voices very low saying there and yes. Outside, the snow persisted. Inside, the world slowly lost its edges. When the night understood the new language, Victoria knew, at that moment when the body becomes home, that now was the time. He looked at her up close, asking for confirmation without words. She nodded. The star bracelet brushed the blanket and made the smallest metallic sound. The clock kept living its own life. The wind stirred the garden tree. Somewhere, the hallway wood shifted faintly, as if the house itself said, "I'm here." When all quieted, they remained embraced on their sides. No one said finally, aloud. "There was no need. Thank you," he murmured, "for staying with me in this rhythm." "Thank you for finding it with me," she answered. And she knew the simple truth. It had been, by far, the best experience of her life. Not because of fireworks, though there were fireworks, but because of the exquisite care, The time they gave each other, the way her body felt chosen without conditions. Sleep returned. Before it fully closed, Victoria thought of her daughter arriving in the morning, and the house already changed. More honest, more hers. "Tomorrow we'll be reasonable people," she whispered. "Today, too," he echoed, smiling against her hair. The fogged window kept the secret. And the night stayed, at last, on the side of those who do not rush. The day would bring complication and joy. Victoria Martin's home looked like a warm shop window. Low light in the living room, a freshly watered pine in the corner with cinnamon sticks tied to its branches. The table was set with care-cream tablecloth, wooden chargers, 3 candles and iron holders, a gift from the community workshop, and a fir branch running through the center. On the counter waited a dish for the orange-glazed turkey, another for rosemary roast potatoes, and a tureen ready for the humble clear soup, her mother's recipe. Already served, apple and walnut salad and braided bread. Hannah Martin had returned that morning and filled the house with airport stories, a drawing of the town tree, and questions without commas. They had baked star-shaped cookies with crooked points, tried on hats, cried a little, and laughed a lot. "Mom," Hannah said as she arranged napkins, "when is Sebastian coming? I've been waiting days to meet him." "Ever since you started talking about that special friend." Your eyes sparkle. "I want to meet the person who gave you your sparkle back." Victoria set down the knife she'd been using to slice the bread and looked at her. "I didn't invite him," she said gently. "We thought we'd wait. I didn't want to impose anything on you today without knowing if you two would connect. He's having dinner at the O'Donnell house. They've gathered a big group from the town. He said he'd bring a tray of cookies and a bottle of wine, toast, and head back early. His parents are in Europe this year with his sister's family. Then he should eat with us," Hannah concluded, practical as ever. "In a party of 40, no one will notice if he's gone for a bit. Tell him to come, please." "I want him at our table," Victoria smiled and dialed. "I know I'm telling you with very little notice," she said when he answered. "This is Hannah insisting. I also know you have a commitment, and I don't want to put you in a difficult spot." Sebastián Abbot replied with the calm she already knew. "Hannah's right. At a 40-person buffet, no one will miss me. I'll excuse myself, dine with you both, and then stop by the party afterward. Or the 3 of us can go if you want. Is that okay?" "It's perfect," Victoria said, and felt the house breathe. Sebastian called the neighbors. Kate O'Donnell laughed over the phone and said of course, she wouldn't begrudge anyone. She understood. And they were welcome later for dancing or the late-night spread. No pressure. He arrived half an hour later with a dark coat, gloves, a tray of still warm cookies, and a bottle of red wine wrapped in craft paper. He also brought a small parcel tied with twine. "Hannah," he greeted, serious but kind, "I'm Sebastian." "Thank you for inviting me. I make cookies with funny corners too," she announced. "And I know how to braid bread." She extended her hand with 10-year-old solemnity. "Nice to meet you." They sat. The conversation moved like a sleigh on smooth ice, travel anecdotes, snow plans, workshop stories, and local radio gossip. Sebastian listened more than he talked. When he did speak, his sentences were clear. "Do you really make real swords?" Hannah asked. "Real ones," he said. "For theater, film, and collectors. And hooks for stars." He gave Victoria a small wink. They ate without hurry, silence of hunger mixing with small laughs. Victoria watched from inside the moment, surprised at how easy everything felt. The warm star bracelet against her skin gave her a different pulse. There was room for everyone. After the toast, Hannah clapped once. "Presents," she declared. "Me first." She handed her mother an envelope with a voucher. An entire afternoon of mother-daughter music and cookies. Victoria tucked it away like someone who had just received a map. For Sebastian, Hannah offered a drawing, the town's tree, him fixing the star, and a bow-tied cat. "That's Lord Byron with a bow tie," she explained. "Because he's a gentleman." "It's perfect," Sebastian said, emotion tightening his voice. "I'll frame it in the workshop." Victoria handed Sebastian a long package. Inside was a handmade leather sheath for his stamping hammer, with a star stitched in tiny, neat points. "For your craft to travel warm," she said. "He'll appreciate it," he replied, and their hands brushed as they held the gift under the watchful smile of the daughter who had already understood. "Mine's left," Sebastian added, placing the small parcel on the tablecloth. Inside was a very thin iron bookmark, with a star cut out, and, at the edge, an "For your books," he said. "And so you decide when to close each chapter." Hannah held it as if it weighed more. "I like it," she said. "I can read aloud later, if you want." After the party, they cleaned up together, laughing as they folded napkins and stored leftovers. At last, Lord Byron appeared, stretching by the radiator, and bumped his head softly against Sebastian's shin. Verdict approved. Outside, the white breath of night formed small clouds over the porch. "Shall we stop by the O'Donnells?" Victoria suggested. "Half an hour. One song, then back home for chocolate." "That's what Kate said," Sebastian smiled. "The dancing and the late snack are optional." They bundled up. Victoria glanced at her home before turning off the lights, the slightly messy table and the opened gifts. She allowed herself a twinge of gratitude. The cold air greeted them with a friendly pinch. They walked along the creaking wooden street. The town had glowing windows like happy eyes. At the O'Donnell house, music spilled out in bursts, and someone laughed on the porch. Kate opened the door and hugged all three with the overflowing warmth of a natural hostess. Come in," she said. "The midnight carols are just starting." In the large living room, Victoria and Sebastian found each other's hands without hiding. Hannah hurried ahead to examine the tree there bigger than theirs, but just as proud. Someone suggested a short waltz, someone else a clapping song. No speeches, just gestures. A smiling child, two adults looking at each other with clarity, a town making room. When the music softened, Hannah tugged on her mother's sleeve. "I like him," she declared. "Can we go home for chocolate and reading?" "We can," Victoria said, and looked at Sebastian. "Will you stay to hear the first chapter?" "I'll stay," he answered, keeping his promise, being there, without rush. They stepped back into the street. The star atop the town's tree pulsed twice in the distance. Victoria squeezed her daughter's hand, and with the other, Sebastian's, Holly Ridge breathed with them. And Christmas finally confirmed that what is firm can also be tender. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe and stay to watch the next one.